Well, Rob, thanks for catching up with us ahead of today's game against Darlington. How would you assess the season so far?
Look, I think I'm really pleased. I think we've had a really good start to the season. I think I'm pleased with what I'm seeing out on the pitch. Obviously, there's a couple of spells where obviously clearly I haven't been that happy, but I think overall, I mean, we couldn't have asked for anything better. Under the circumstances, of how obviously we lost the players, so early on, and obviously with Robbie going at the same time and having to adapt quick and bring in Rooney in, and making sure that we kept the morale and obviously, that was a challenging period. But I think the start that we've had is really good. I think we can be better. And I think that's something that we're going to look at over the coming weeks on how we can achieve that.
How would you assess that step up between the Northern Premier League last year, of course, and the Enterprise National League North this season?
I think what you've got to realise is this league is tough. I think when you look at when I first took over the club, the first league and the second league and the third league that we had, we could kind of go down a pay-as-you-play model. Where we could, have huge amounts of players coming through, and we kind of did do that. If you remember, we had quite a big churn rate of players, and that was because it was a pay-as-you-play. As we've had to move up through the leagues, obviously we've then started to get players that are on contract, and some of those can be a contract for 1 or 2 years, and they become more expensive. And the more successful that we've been, obviously the playing budget we've had to adapt and increase massively. For each time we've gone up. I think, as I've said it a million times before, we're a huge, big, fish, in a very small pond. And now we're starting to level out as a football club and start to play with the teams that have got serious budgets and are full time as well.
Do your expectations for this season need to be tempered a little bit with respect to the fact that there are some big teams in that league, and historically teams like Stockport County have taken 5 or 6 years to get out of that league. Scunthorpe United have recently taken 3 years, but even today we're playing Darlington next league team, there's your likes of Chester, Hereford. So do your expectations have to kind of be tempered a little bit in respect of that step up? No,
I totally agree, Bob. I think we're learning. We're new to this. We've come from promotion. We've got that winning mentality, and I think for me now it's like I said, the levels are leveling out, and I think it's really important that we aren't going to win every single game. And I obviously clearly look at social media, and I'll see Rob, get your checkbook out. Things aren't good enough. We're gonna finish 10th. But then if that's the case, then so be it. Obviously, we want to try and do our best. We're going to learn. We've got to, probably it might take us 2 years or 3 years to get out of this league. I think the expectations for us, or certainly for me, would be playoffs. Anything sort of top 7. I think anything below that, I would be disappointed. But the reality is, we aren't going to win every game. There are seriously tough teams out there, and I think we've got to maybe change the mentality of that is going to be the case, and expectations probably would be due to circumstances, money that we've spent, haven't spent, losing players, trying to adapt. That this season is not going to probably be one where we're going to win it.
In terms of kind of like seasons before, when we've had not a bad spell because we've got used to winning, but when we've needed players, let's be honest, we've brought them in, haven't we? This season, if we need players, are we still able to bring them in, albeit maybe at a diluted level because of the the raising wages and life in National League North?
Yeah, look, it's a really difficult job to bring in players. There's no question about it. I think during the summer we spent an awful lot of money as a football club on players that we wanted to retain and give those players that opportunity to, play in this league. So obviously we had to make sure that we kept the players, retained the players, and that was what Robbie did at the time. But we spent an awful lot of that money on probably maybe 13, 14 players. And I think, we needed more players, but we'd spent a lot of that money, or Robbie had spent a lot of the money on those 14 players. So moving into this sort of level now where we are is, we've had to go out and spend more money to bring players in to basically build a squad. And going back on sort of how it works is, most of these players are under contract, just like our players are under contract. So if somebody came for a Damani or a Duffy, of course, I'm not going to sell them. It'd have to be an unbelievable, price that I'd want for those players to go. So the likes of when you're going to buy, a new player or you put an offer in, you're talking huge amounts of money. And then it's got to be the right player. You've got to, you don't want to just go out and take a risk. So it is a challenge to find that player that we can bring in.
I guess, like you said right at the start of this interview, you look at social media. One question some Mac fans have said is that is the budget there to bring in if we need, particularly from the summer departures?
100%. Look, that there's no question about that. I think, we're clear that we need a couple of players. I'm trying to look at levels higher to bring them, into the club. There is money there to be spent. It's not an ideal situation. I'm going to be honest. We didn't really want to spend any more money than what we're spending. Our budget is right up there, probably double some of the teams that we've already played. When I've had the conversations with some of the teams that we've played already, it's kind of that, what's your playing budget, just to get an idea, and when they tell you, your heart stops. You think, Christ, we're nearly 3 times as much as that. So my expectations are probably like the Mac fans is, the more you pay, you should expect to win. But the reality is that isn't football.
But irrespective of budget, you can't fault the players we've got at the minute. And I think, at Spenmore on Monday, what a resilient performance, which said everything you need to know really about the players we've got here already.
100%. I think that was that for me was a game changer. I think, when we played the last few matches, there was spells in the game where, you're having your doubts. Are we good enough? Of the players that have come up are good enough, or are they not? And that's the question that I wasn't really sort of felt comfortable with. I was looking at the players, but, after Spennymoor, I really got that feel of fight, that grit back, and I could see the determination of the players. And, I think if we can carry on with that mentality, then absolutely, I think, we've got a heck of a chance of doing really well.
2 big home games now, isn't it? Darlington.
Exciting,
today.
Yeah, Darlington.
Merthyr. And used to know as Merthyr Tydfil, now Merthyr Town. Two teams who, we've played a lot in the past. But just how important are these 2 home games now?
I think every game is important. I think we're going to have that throughout the season. I think we got very used to winning, and I think we'd turn up and we thought, oh, what's the score going to be today? We're going to be 3-1, 4-1, and we'd all be excited. Now we're getting a different type of feeling for each game. I feel like I'm coming here and I'm nervous. I don't know what to expect. I'm apprehensive. I'm worried. All my mind's going crazy. But I believe in the structure of what Rooney's doing. He is going out and looking for players. We've got a great team in there. But yeah, every game is a bit of an unknown. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to say we could win today. They're all great teams.
Does that make it even more exciting in a way? Because if you come to a game and you kind of half know the result, do you know what I mean? Whereas we're coming now, and do you know what? We have to fight for every point, possibly, arguably, for the first time as Macclesfield FC.
I think that's the shift.
Yeah.
I think that's the excitement. But that's why I think all the fans are a little bit trying to get used to this, because we've just had that winning mentality. We win. We pretty much knew we were going to win. We'd kind of come in there a little bit, maybe a bit cocky. Now it's like, are we good enough? Have we got the players? You see some of the players out there. They're full time. They're athletic. They're fit. And we last year were probably playing some teams that, after about 60 minutes, they couldn't even run. And we were fit and athletic, and we could absolutely wipe the floor with them. And that's where we were really strong. But now at this level, teams are just as fit and as physical. And I think that's the excitement, though.
And just finally, almost going into that unknown of, are we going to win? You know what I mean? How much, therefore, do we need the fans even more than we have done in previous seasons?
I've said it from day one. Without the fans, we're nothing. You know, when they get out there and they start singing, and the away support has been incredible as well. I've got to say a huge thank you for everyone that's made those efforts. The fans are everything, and you know, when they start singing to help us, you know, it really does sort of, you know, my hairs stand up. You know, it is an amazing feeling, and those fans are just like, yeah, I've said it. They've been incredible, and they've been on the journey, and I think that's the exciting thing. We have been all in this together, and you know, we've all come from nothing in a way, and we're all learning as we're going together as a you know, as a community club, and you know, the fans as well. We're all learning, and you know, it's super exciting.